Hi, my name's Emma, and let's talk spooky stuff. Surrealist fans, look out, UK independent horror She Will hit VOD on the 15th, and it's now available on rental platforms like Vudu. And although this film boasts absolutely magical scenery and cinematography, the characters are too detailed for its feature runtime, which leads to the end of the film feeling rushed and the audience in need of closure. She Will is the story of Veronica, who is known for her younger years as an actress. Bending into the stereotype, Veronica is bitter later in life and wishes to be isolated from society, especially after her recent surgery. She is now assisted by a live-in nurse as she travels to a solitary retreat to recover. But things do not go to plan because when she arrives at the property, it's filled with people. And although her first reaction is to run away, there is something in the earth that is keeping her from leaving. If Veronica looks familiar, she's played by the amazing Alice Cridge, who is from the OA, Sleepwalkers, and of course something that fits the cinematography on how you'll see her in this film much more closely, 2020's Gretel and Hansel. But the film itself on paper has some similarities to a different horror movie, Saint Maud. We have an aging starlet who's under the care of a young nurse, and at the start of the film we see the same kind of bleak backdrop of the UK. The film is also about the damage of trauma over time and how it imprints, changes, and haunts those involved. But this is where the similarities end, because in this film, the religious aspects or spiritual aspects are anything but Christian. It's definitely a lot more witchy, which I guess technically you could say has something to do with Christianity because they do go into the history of burning witches. The film lays out the foundations for each character carefully, packing them full of interest. Veronica's arc throughout the film is well paced as her nurse Desi acts almost like a protagonist. She's used in parts where Veronica seems like an unreliable narrator, although she also has her own just as important, terrifying side plot. And then we have Malcolm McDowell, who plays Hearthborn, a man from Veronica's past who plays into the social commentary of the Hollywood film scene. So what could possibly be flawed when the characters are built upon interesting backstories and well-explained, thoughtful setups and dialogue? Well, that's precisely the point. With so much setup and spending time developing these characters, the film only leaves a small amount of time to get through its final act. This plays out as rushed when they spend so much time establishing these characters and the relationships between them. The film feels like it's missing pieces, or really skipping over extremely interesting aspects that I would have loved to learn more about. For this reason, I feel like this film would be more suited to being a limited series or a mini series, maybe just one season of a TV show that was done in such a thoughtful way. Although we've seen our fair share of group isolation type shows with Nine Perfect Strangers and White Lotus, both great series in their own way, there's a reason that these type of stories are able to be explored over hours or episodes. There are so many interesting themes to be explored, including the location, which again they touch on, just like they touch on all of the characters. But I think what they set up was so captivating that they would have been able to pull off some great twists and turns throughout if it was extended. And the film doesn't even touch on the interesting artists that were also guests on the property. It feels like there's more here, and it's a really wasted opportunity, leaving the audience with the credits rolling and no real closure. But there are a few other things about the film that made it feel a little bit off, and these are within the stylization and the techniques. Although, I have to say, the cinematography for this film is beautiful, jaw-dropping, stunning. It's almost too beautiful that it looks like a highlight reel of the location. They opted for several different color stories, which I lean towards this goes with the flow of the film and the character arcs, because they change so quickly and the difference is so obvious. We start with red, we move into a spooky nighttime blue, and then of course a healing green. She Will is a highly saturated film with gem tones. But don't get me wrong, this is a positive for me. I absolutely loved the way it was color graded, and I loved all of the cinematography. Even if it does seem at times too perfect, it just makes me want to see it as a TV show so I can see more of it. It's all so beautiful, but something did feel off at times. We go through purposefully symmetric shots to strange tilts that had no real purpose, unless it was to show the loss of control after Veronica was represented in these really powerful shots in the middle of the frame. frame. Adding to this, the whimsical music felt hopeful or uplifting at times when really you would assume it would be going for scary, spooky, whimsical maybe, but in a strange, dark way. It played into the more fantasy aspect of the film, but it didn't feel like it was trying to scare the audience, in which it would have because it's matched with such chilling visuals. But the one thing in the stylization that was actually off-putting was the dream sequences. Dreams are a big part of this film, but there are 3 or 4 dream sequences throughout the film, and with so much depth to these characters and so many themes left to explore, I couldn't help but feel frustrated that we spent so much time in these transitional moments. It just didn't feel like it added much to the plot at all. I do understand there is witchy vibes, we've got to play it up, but it just felt like a little bit of overkill. In saying that, this film is anything but a snooze fest. Its imagery will keep you interested as every shot is flawless. I guess they got it right if a film leaves you wanting more, but I really felt like they cut the potential for this story off at its knees, keeping the audience intrigued about so many aspects only to quickly wrap up the story as the characters you've come to love or be intrigued by disappear into the credits. Director Charlotte Colbert had so much to say in this film about the power of trauma over time and how it's imprinted on the earth. And I wish she did just that, gave us more of what she so carefully crafted. I really loved the characters and the setup of this story, and I didn't think that it had like a misstep. It just didn't really reach its full potential. I still have hope that this could be made into a TV show. I really think it should be, because as I said before, it'd be really interesting to have this kind of vacation where all those strangers come together, something spooky's happening on the land, and we get to explore all of the different characters through each episode. We've seen this in dramas, but it'd be really cool to see a horror version of it, and I think that this is the perfect story. But it didn't live up to my expectations because it ended so fast. Before an independent horror, it was pretty special. I'm gonna give this one a 7 out of 10. I was bordering on 6, but there are so many things to love about it. I'm just bothered. I'm so bothered that it didn't get there in the end. I would have watched this for another half an hour if it had a full third act that tied up everything a little bit more neatly. I know that films are allowed to have ambiguous endings, obviously, but it wasn't that for me. It was just they touched on so many interesting things and they just didn't explore them. Okay, you get it. You've already heard the video. For scare, I'm gonna give it a 4 because the music really killed me. Like, it took me out of it. Although if you're a fantasy fan or a witchy fan, you won't have a problem with that. And for originality, I'm gonna give it a 6. I've touched on in this video a couple of other films that are quite similar, and I do think that it's the same themes, just this time very interesting characters. Fun fact as well, keep an eye out if you're an Argento fan, because he was an executive producer on this film, and I think that there is a nod to him. I'm not sure if I'm correct. I don't know why they would put in a full nod because they have several executive producers, but keep an eye out and let me know if you spot it in the comments if you've seen this film. Have you seen She Will? Will you watch She Will? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, whether you loved it or you disliked it. I want to know the nitty gritty. I'd recommend this film to people who like interesting characters, witchy vibes, and just beautiful cinematography. But I will say it will leave you a little bit disappointed, so fair warning. Thank you all so much for being here and hanging out with me. I hope you can't hear it, but it just started raining here, so very spooky. Love that. If you haven't subscribed, I'd love to see you again. I do 2 videos every single week, talking about horrors, talking about thrillers, giving you lots of recommendations, doing some deep dives. I've done a lot of deep dives recently, and I've been really enjoying them, so I'd love to have you here, and if you did enjoy the video, please give it a thumbs up. That really helps me out, and I'll talk to you all very soon. Stay safe and stay spooky. Bye, friends.